Hey kiddies, it's Triple Feature Tuesday once again, and this week we look at Black-Clad binary badasses. That's right, we're going to look at 3 movies in which there are predominantly silent, dressed head to toe in black with just a smidge of color, badasses in sci-fi and horror movies that feature 2 weapons. And it's usually 2 of the same weapon, it's just, 2 is more than 1, and so that makes them amazing. This is kind of fun. It happened over the course of basically 10 years where we had 3 of these guys, and I ended up loving all 3 of them. I have action figures for all of them, but they're all kind of packed up in different spots. And I'm also in the ancestral home, so I don't have them around. They're all visually interesting and fairly silent because predominantly they're being played by stuntmen or acrobats or some form of martial artist. The few lines that they do have, funnily enough, are all dubbed by different people, and we're going to get into that later. So our menu is going to go in order of increasing importance to the plot and or actual existence of a real character. So our menu is going to include Hellboy, Tron Legacy, and Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. In Hellboy, Rasputin's enforcer, who's not Elsa, because that's, enforcer slash squeeze, slash head of the Thule Cult Society, I believe they say, is a Karl Ruprecht Cronin, played by acrobat Ladislav Baran. And he goes around in a black mask with kind of a gold trim life preserver and these 2 tonfas that are basically swords. It's like if you combined swords and tonfas and a teleporter, this is what would come out. Basically swords you can swing around on your forearms, and they are amazing. And he doesn't really say anything ever. There's a couple times that he grunts or laughs, and that is provided by the director slash writer and just all around wonderful dude, Guillermo del Toro. He's a pretty serious badass. He's going around, I think he ends up killing like more main characters than anybody else. I mean, Samael is going around killing every other thing that moves. Cronin kills Agent Clay. That kind of sets Tom Manning on Hellboy's case for the final time, and also ends up killing Professor Broom at the behest of Rasputin. So he's kind of important and is, seemingly going to kill Hellboy and Manning later. And it's only through the combined forces of them that they can take him out. He has 2 main scenes of awesomeness, predominantly in the library flashback where we see him take out, 11 guards by flinging bullets back at them with the spinning tonfas or, just stabbing them, again, with the sword tonfa things, and he is just wonderful to watch. This Ladislav Baran, just so flexible and angular, and just the movement is beautiful. Guillermo del Toro had met him on the set of Blade 2. He had played one of the Reapers, the creepy crawly like evil or vampires that Blade had to take out. But other than that, he doesn't really. He's like the Jaws or the Odd Job of the group. He's just there to be cool and then, be taken out by our hero, which Hellboy does with the help of a gigantic gear. And I mean, Hellboy is just one of the best comic book movies ever made. I mean, I had seen Guillermo del Toro movies before. I had been a fan of Mimic and Blade 2, but this was the first one where I knew, I found out who he was and what he was about, and just, I've been in love with Guillermo del Toro movies ever since. It's just visually stunning and so much heart, and I mean, nobody else could have made the Hellboy movie work. Like the comic turned into the movie would not have worked under, I don't think, anybody else, because it's so idiosyncratic, and that's sort of what Guillermo del Toro specializes in, which hopefully he'll continue to do that forever. I don't understand. All of his movies make money, but he still has trouble getting his movies made. This does not make sense to me. It's frustrating. Next up, we have Tron Legacy, the long-awaited, what was it, like 30 years after the first Tron movie? So it was like, I'm not saying nobody cared, but I'm just saying by and large the time to make it had passed, but we got it, and it was really great. Or, visually and acting-wise. Plot, not so much. So the son of Flynn goes into the grid and to rescue Kevin Flynn, played by Jeff Bridges. During Sam Flynn, that's the son played by Garrett Hedlund, during his odyssey to find his father, he has to play the games, which are, you know, the most visually exciting things in Tron. We just love them. And eventually in Disc Wars, he goes up against the legendary badass Rinzler, who is, you know, part of the evil group, as evidenced by him having orangey red highlights and having 2 discs. See, everybody always has 1 disc, but he has 2. So that makes it much more exciting. And if I'm being honest, it totally does. I'm so into it. It's so bad. I love Rinzler. Played by, I believe he's a dancer slash stuntman named Anis Cherufua. I'm not sure if I'm spelling it right. It's a Cheurfa. I apologize. I admire you greatly. And it's basically just him hopping around and throwing the 2 Tron discs all around the room while Sam is barely trying to figure out which way gravity is going at any different point. And Rinzler, we find out, spoiler alert for a movie that's almost 10 years old, or is like 6 years old at this point. You would have seen it anyway if you wanted to. Rinzler is so badass because he is in fact Tron. It's kind of, you know, it's hinted at throughout the whole movie. You can see he's got the little Tron squares right like front and center the whole time. He's just evil. And he's also being voiced by Bruce Boxleitner, who is Tron. But he's got a lot more great scenes and is an actual character as opposed to Cronin, who is just, you know, a weapon that Rasputin throws at things. Through the course of the movie, we find out how Tron was corrupted by Clue, and we have a bit of a redemption arc to him towards the end of the film, which, unfortunately, at this point will probably never be picked up on. I don't think Tron 3 is ever going to happen, and if it does, it will be probably 30 years from when Tron Legacy came out, so all the people from the original Tron will probably be dead by then, so what would be the point? Rinzler has a lot of really great scenes as Clue's #1 enforcer. We got the Disc Wars scene. He's not actually present in the light cycle sequence. He comes in at the end, but then we got like a lot of great stuff when Sam is rescuing Cora, and then during like the flight cycle scene. I don't know what those little light planes are called, so I'm going to call them flight cycles because that's punny and terrible. All throughout it, Rinzler, much like Cronin, his face is completely covered, and he's just very intimidating because you don't know what's going on in the guy's head until he acts, and then he's acting quicker than you can respond. And again, even if you block one of the discs he's throwing at you, he's got another disc, because 2 is scary. And once again, Cherufua did not voice the character. He was voiced by Bruce Boxleitner throughout the whole thing, because that's who he's supposed to be playing. And through the magic of CG, they actually do have Boxleitner's likeness for the one sequence where he's still, when he was still Tron before he became Rinzler. So that's kind of neat. The special effects, they kind of work more than they don't, like the younging up of people, because Jeff Bridges has a younger doppelganger running around, and then Bruce Boxleitner's scene, he's supposed to be, you know, 30 years younger. And it sort of works for the computer characters because they're computer characters and they're not supposed to look overly realistic, but the scenes where it is actually supposed to be young Jeff Bridges, it's a little more touch and go. But overall, I love Tron Legacy. It is not the movie that we had hoped it would be, but it is still just beautiful with the Daft Punk music, and just everything about it is just a good time. Doesn't make even one lick of sense, which, I mean, one could argue that Tron the first didn't make any sense, but Tron the first had its own sort of internal logic that made it work. This one, no, we know too much about computers now. It just doesn't make sense at all. But man, so pretty. Finally, we have Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, which, let me get out of the way front and center. It's terrible. It's terrible from start to finish. Nothing but bad ideas, poorly executed. Just, it's one of the worst things ever put on film. But Darth Maul Maul. I have loved Darth Maul passionately, and at times inappropriately, ever since the movie came out. Because he had 2 lightsabers! He's like head to toe in black, except for like the scary tattoo face and horns, and he's got a lightsaber that comes out at both ends. 2! That lets him take on 2 different Jedi. And he's like owning the whole fight. It's played by Ray Park, martial artist slash stuntman, who is just a whirling dervish of death throughout the whole movie. He's just spinning. It's like you try to knock him over, oh, he will spin on this leg, or he will spin on that leg, or he'll get on his hands and spin around. And he's got the double-sided lightsaber that's going around everywhere, and it's amazing. And then he just up and gets killed by Obi-Wan because story reasons. And it's even worse because he had the high ground and got sliced in half. And then in Revenge of the Sith, when Anakin's going for his big death blow and Obi-Wan says, "Don't try it, I have the high ground." Well, it worked for you earlier in the series, so why wouldn't it work for him? It's just, it's so bad. But Darth Maul was so scary. Played by physically Ray Park, voiced by comedian and voice actor Peter Serafinowicz, because, well, look, I love Ray Park, but his voice is not the most intimidating thing about him. That's okay, because he can kill you, 5 ways before you even realize he's started to move. As evidenced in this movie, it was like the first time we'd seen the Force used by a guy that was not walking around in an iron lung, so he's just so physical and violent, and he's just like pointing to things and moving them with the Force, all while taking on Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor with lightsabers and making them work for it. Like, at no point do they really have him on the ropes until somehow he can't dodge Obi-Wan Kenobi, okay, not slowly rising up, but, not quickly rising up, jumping behind him and spinning. I mean, it's the Force. He knows how the Force works. I don't get it. It was lame. He is an actual character. He is a Sith Lord. He has real importance to the plot because he is the physical threat that's chasing our characters throughout the whole movie and kills Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi's mentor, and helps motivate him even more. So we end on Darth Maul, and plus, I probably just like him best out of all 3 of them. So, I mean, that might be a reason. That might be a reason as well. But Black-Clad, binary badasses. Try saying that 3 times fast. It's difficult. They're just fun, and I like 2 out of these 3 movies unabashedly. I like 5 minutes of that 3rd one because, oddly enough, it's the 5 minutes with Darth Maul, but that's neither here nor there because we can like Star Wars again and everything's good. So that'll do it for this week, and I'll see you next week.